We're live? Yes. Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm just going to chat with you guys for a few minutes while y'all are coming in. Hopefully it's sending out the notification to everyone that we are going live. And so I kind of want to go through the process of what the Facebook Lives are going to look like so that way we can clear up some miscommunications about what the Facebook Lives do. So whenever you want to register for a session for one of our Facebook Lives, and we have a whole bunch of them right now on Bookio, you can see all of our sessions on our Facebook page. A lot of the sessions are on our website, and everything is on Bookio, which is our booking system. So you can click onto Bookio, which we'll put the link on here for you, and you can see all the different sessions that we're doing. Any of the sessions that we do, you can come in and we can make it a Facebook Live. So we just look and see who's registered. If it's anybody that's not local, then we'll go ahead and make it a Facebook Live. All right? So let us know. So what you'll do is you'll go into Bookio and you're going to book your session. And then once you book your session and we get closer to the date of the Facebook Live, we will add everybody into a private event for Facebook. You have to accept that invite. And so make sure that you check your spam and your junk folder close to the day, and make sure that you check and accept that invite so you can get into the private event. We will have some mnemonics for you. We'll have some practice questions for you. We are going to go live now. It'll be about an hour. And then the video will be available for you to watch for the next week or so, at least a week. So you can watch it anytime you want. You can watch it multiple times, and we're going to follow up with you and make sure you're getting lots of practice times so that you can master the ABGs. So be sure to register for any of our Facebook Lives. They're quick, they're easy, and they're really, really amazing. And I think that we can do a lot of good today to help you clear up ABGs. So as people are kind of coming in, I'm going to do just a couple more announcements just to make sure that everyone's logged in. Do we have a couple people coming in? Mm-hmm. Okay. If you have any questions, you can write your questions. There will be a little bit of a lag, so you're going to make sure that give us about 10 to 15 seconds is usually how long it'll take for us to be able to see your questions, and we'll call all those questions and get those answered. If you're going to watch this later, then you can post your questions in the Facebook Live event, and we will answer those for you. Okay. We're also going to have a follow-up worksheet for you to practice some of the things that you learned today, and we'll be choosing a winner off of that to do a giveaway from our boutique. So you want to make sure that you're answering that and following up. Watching the video is going to be super helpful, but it's those follow-up and the practice. It's really going to help you synthesize the way that we have learned today. All right, so we'll have people come in. You guys can ask any questions. Please do remember there's a lag, and we will get to your questions, and if we don't get to them right away, we can do it at the end, okay? If you guys want to get our announcements and our promos, make sure that you are texting nursing to 85100, and you can get all of our promo codes. We just sent one out a couple days ago to get 20% off one of your sessions. So make sure that you sign up for that, and we'll be sending out a couple things here and there. All right. So we're going to go ahead and dive into ABGs. If you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. I'm going to try to make this as painless as possible because ABGs are painful. Okay. So when you guys come in, I kind of want you to tell me anything that you know about ABGs. Give me some fun facts that you know. And we're going to get started with the basics of ABGs, what they mean, and why they're important. So starting out with the super basics, ABGs, so arterial blood gas. So we are actually going into an arterial line, the most common line that we're going to do. You'll hear it in the hospital called an A line. That's an arterial line. And it is an IV line, right? It's a catheter that we are going to put into usually the radial artery, and it is going to pull arterial blood. Now, the IVs that we usually do in the hospital, those are IV catheters, but those usually go into a vein, and those are getting venous blood. This is different because it's going to be arterial blood, all right? We are looking for the different gases that are in our arterial blood, all right? Now, it is not within your scope of practice typically to start A lines. You can go and get certified for it, and some nurse practitioners can do it. But you will be maintaining A lines, and so that's something that we will cover on another Facebook Live, because today we're just going to talk about how to interpret these ABGs. Now, you are able to draw the ABGs. They go in a very specialized syringe. It's not a normal syringe, and they have to be taken immediately over to the ABG lab, or you have to put them in some ice in order to keep them normalized, all right? If you just let it hang out on the counter for a couple of minutes even, your ABGs are going to be off because blood's going to be hemolyzing, things are going to be changing, acids and bases are going to be going crazy, so your ABGs have to be drawn, taken directly to the lab, or even if you have to go downstairs to go to the lab, it needs to be put in a cup of ice and taken down there. So that's a really important consideration for ABGs. All right, so why are these even important? Why are we drawing these blood gases? So the blood gases are going to tell us what's really important about pH, which is our main buffering system of the whole body, right? So we have acids and we have bases, and the main goal of our whole body is to maintain homeostasis in the blood. We got any comments so far? Nope. Nobody knows anything. Great, so you're going to learn it today, okay? So in our ABGs, we have a couple of different components, all right? So we're going to have the pH, okay? we are going to have the, you'll see it written lots of different ways, but usually you'll see it as a PaCO2, okay? You will also see an HCO3 and a PaO2, okay? So what will happen when you take this to the ABG lab, they will put the ABG in and it's going to spit out this little piece of paper and it's going to give you what your ABGs are. We use these interpretations to decide our treatment plan for the patient, all right? And what is going on in the patient's homeostasis. So these are super, super important. It's important for you to understand what's going on with your patient, all right? So let's start out with the pH, all right? A normal pH, does anybody know what a normal pH is? For some reason, I feel like in nursing school, this is the only value that almost every single person in the history of all time can remember. I don't know why, but they do. So your normal pH, in order to maintain homeostasis, to not be acidic or to be too basic, is 7.35 to 7.45. All right, so that is normal, that's happy, that's where we want to live, all right? When you're looking at these components, all right, you want to remember a couple of different things. First of all, your O2 and your CO2 go on a seesaw, okay? So typically if your O2 is low, your CO2 is going to be high and vice versa. Reason being, okay, keep in mind I'm a terrible artist, I'm going to draw some lungs that don't look like lungs, okay? But the bottom line is I want to talk about the alveoli down here at the bottom. So you've got these alveoli at the bases. Remember that alveoli are these sites of gas exchange, right? And so what the purpose is as you inhale or you ventilate, all right, you're going to bring in oxygen. It's going to go into your alveoli, forcing out the CO2. So that's kind of how they go on a seesaw. So if I'm not taking in very much oxygen and there's very little pull, then I'm not going to get rid of very much CO2 because there's nothing forcing the CO2 to come out. So if I have low O2, which would be like a hypoxic patient, and they typically have a buildup of CO2 in the alveoli. So that's how oxygen and carbon dioxide are going to work a little bit with each other. So typically those are going to be on the seesaw, so be looking for that, all right? If you look at these just as values, all right, your PaCO2 is your carbon dioxide. So that's what we let out as an expiration. That's a gas. The CO2, normal CO2, how I remember it, pull this 3,5 and 4,5 down, all right? And your normal CO2 is 35 to 45. So I always put these right next to each other because that's easy for me to remember, all right? Your PaCO2, or your CO2, your carbon dioxide, you want to remember is your acid, okay? And that's really going to come in handy whenever you're starting to talk about your disease processes, right? So say you know that with COPD, all right, they're not bringing in a whole bunch of oxygen, therefore their carbon dioxide is building up in the alveoli. Well, if I know that they have buildup of carbon dioxide, and I know that's my acid, then I can almost always know that a patient with COPD is going to be acidotic because they're retaining too much CO2, okay? So remember that your PaCO2 is your acid component that will help, all right? Your HCO3 is your bicarb, all right? Your normal bicarb is 22 to 26, okay? And your bicarb is going to be your base, okay? That one's easy. Now, PaCO2 is mostly maintained by your lungs, right? Because your lungs are what is responsible for getting rid of your CO2, all right? So typically if there's a problem with the CO2, it's almost always going to be lung or respiratory, okay? If you're holding in too much CO2, since it's acidic, you're going to be acidic, right? Easy enough. If you're letting out too much CO2, as in, okay, I'm nervous about a nursing exam and I'm hyperventilating, I'm blowing out all my acids, so it's going to leave me alkalotic. So you can remember those basic concepts, and that's super easy. So whenever you get a scenario in ABGs, which some schools will give you a scenario as well as these full ABGs, okay, then you can remember that your CO2 is your acid, and that it is maintained by your lungs, so that's going to give you your respiratory component. Your HCO3 is your bicarb. That's your base, all right? And does anybody know what organ maintains your base or does your balance?
Someone is saying that, someone said, did anyone else lose the feed? So I don't.
Are we still live?
So maybe like give it a minute.
Just give it a catch up?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes if somebody's watching and their internet's slow, or maybe there's a glitch in their internet, sometimes it will go and it'll appear as though it froze. If you ever do freeze, just get out of the video, get back in, and it should pick back up.
Okay.
And if anybody else is not getting the feed, we can still get the comments, so let us know if you're having a hard time.
Okay, so everyone's saying kidney.
Okay, so obviously it went through. Okay, so your HCO3 is your base, right? And it is maintained by the kidney, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we know that this is maintained by kidney, all right, kidneys are our basis for our metabolic functioning, right? So if there is a problem typically with the base, this is going to be metabolic, this is going to be respiratory, okay? Now, anytime you get ABGs, I can't guarantee every single school will give you your PaO2. Sometimes you'll get PaO2 and sometimes you won't. You can still do ABGs without it, but it does help to have it, especially when you're dealing with compensation, which we're going to talk about, and that is the worst. So we will clear it up today and make it super easy, all right? But with your PaO2, so that is your oxygen, but that's your arterial oxygen. This is different than your SpO2. Your SpO2 is your pulse ox that they do on the finger, all right? So this is different. This is actually oxygen that's coming from the arteries, okay? Oxygen, we like to consider, since it goes on a seesaw with CO2, this is also going to be kind of considered a little more basic, okay? Now your PaO2 normally is 80 to 100, which is kind of easy to remember because your SpO2, which is your pulse ox, is usually 90 to 100, so we're about close to that, all right? So we want their oxygenation level to be good, all right? If you get a PaO2 on an ABG that's 60, that's bad. That means we're not oxygenating. You're going to know that that's a respiratory problem, okay? So this can be helpful to kind of teeter-totter you one way or the other. And of course, oxygen is maintained also by the lungs, and so it would be respiratory, all right? So these are the very simplest basics of ABGs, and then we're going to talk about how to do different ABG problems, all right? So just to reiterate really quickly, pH, your PaCO2, that's your carbon dioxide, that is maintained by the lungs and balanced in the lungs. That would be a respiratory condition. Your HCO3, that's your bicarb, it's your base. That is maintained and balanced by the kidneys, and that would be a metabolic condition if there's something up with the HCO3, all right? Your PaO2 and your CO2 are going to go on a seesaw, all right? Know that this is different than your SpO2. So watch that on your nursing exams because they will sometimes say, okay, your SpO2 is 82. When SpO2 of 82 is not good, if we are not oxygenating well. A PaO2 of 82 would be okay. We're oxygenating okay. So please always watch that and make sure it's not the PaO2 versus the SpO2. All right? Super basics of ABGs. All right? So I'm going to erase this, and we're going to actually talk about how to interpret the different ABGs. We're taking a picture? Yeah. Okay. All right. All of these things that I'm doing, we are going to take pictures for you, and they will be posted onto the event page. All right, so are you guys ready? We're going to hit the actual process. Now, if they give you a patient scenario on ABGs, that's way easier, but they're not always going to do that, okay? I'm going to leave part of this up. All right. Whenever you are getting your ABGs, whenever you get a practice question or when you get a question on the exam, it is really important for you to write your normal values out. So you have to know these, okay? So I'm going to walk you through each step, okay, and what the steps look like in order to get the right answer, all right? Okay, so here's what it will look like on your exam, okay? All right, and let me pick some numbers up here. Let's see. Can it be seen pretty easily?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I am going to give this to you guys first. I'm going to give you 30 seconds to try to answer it on your own, and then we're going to work through the problem together.
Okay, someone said, Rhonda said the video is not clear.
Is that clear?
Yeah.
What do you mean not clear?
Is it blurry or? Okay, I just had to zoom in or get closer.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, can everybody read it? Yes? All right, so just in case you can't, we got a pH of 7.24, a PaCO2 of 18, HCO3 of 24, and a PaO2 of 86. So I want you to work it through how you normally would, all right, and then we're going to go through this together. All right, we ready? Don't tell the answer. All right, so when I am doing ABGs, all right, it is very important that you keep your mind super clear and that you do not let yourself get confused because you're going to know how to do this. All right, so the first thing that I do when I see that there is an ABG problem is I am immediately going to write out Rome, and that's the method that we're going to use today, all right? Only so I can make sure I keep it straight, and I know what it stands for, okay, but it just helps me to write it down. So the Rome method that we're going to use today is respiratory is opposite, metabolic is equal. So I write that out right at the beginning, whether you guys have a pen and paper or a whiteboard or whatever they let you have in your exams, write that out first. For NCLEX, you'll have a whiteboard, so you can do all of this. And I like to do this just to make it as clear for myself as possible so that I don't get anything mixed up, all right? When you're nervous or when you're taking an exam, it's really easy for you to miss one little step, and we're not going to do that, all right? So we know that our respiratory is opposite, our metabolic is equal, and we're going to talk about that in just a second. That's the first thing that I do is to write out Rome, all right? The second thing I'm going to do is to write out my normal values, just so I'm not like thinking of them in my head and then I get one wrong accidentally, all right? So we talked about normal values already, so you guys should know these, right? My normal pH is 7.35 to 7.45. My normal PaCO2, remember, bring down the 35 and the 45. My normal HCO3 is 22 to 26. And my normal PaO2 is 80 to 100. Now when you're doing ABGs, we need to get 3 components straight, all right? You're going to need to know whether it's metabolic or respiratory, acidosis or alkalosis, and whether it's compensated or uncompensated. So to keep me straight, I do 3 lines down at the bottom. So whichever one I can figure out, I can go ahead and start filling in the blanks, all right? After I write down my normal levels, the next thing we're going to do is to write arrows to where these are high or these are low, all right? So if I go back and look at it, my normal is 7.35 to 7.45. This is 7.24. So 7.24 is low, yeah? All right. My PaCO2 or my carbon dioxide is 18. Based on my lab levels that I wrote, 18 is low. My HCO3 is 24. Based on my lab levels, that's normal. When I have a normal one, I just do this, okay? My PaO2 is 86. Based on my lab levels, normal. All right, now that I have drawn these, okay, I'm going to start with my pH, right? My pH is low. When my pH is low, that tells me I'm on the acidosis portion, yeah? Okay, so I already know from the get-go I'm going to be in acidosis. So I already have one of my 3 spaces filled. Easy enough? Then I'm going to go and I'm going to look at my arrows. These are both going in the same or equal direction. Yes? So if they're going in the equal direction, meaning they're both going down at the same time, then that is going to be metabolic. Okay? So I know that I am in metabolic acidosis. Now, how do you know if it's compensated or uncompensated? All right. To know whether it's compensated or uncompensated, if it is fully compensated, and to compensate means to make normal, right? When it's compensated, this will be normal. Your pH will be normal. Since my pH is not normal, it can't be compensated, all right? Because to compensate means that all of these things are going to be messed up, and they're going to be working together in order to make the pH normal, all right? So if you get it, we're going to cover this a little bit more, but I'm going to just briefly talk about it now. If all 3 of these are completely messed up, high or low, but this is normal, that means that your lungs and your kidneys and your oxygen, all of these things are working together and they're going to become messed up in order to maintain your normal pH. So since this is an abnormal pH, I know that it's not compensated, okay? All right, the pH is down, CO2 is down, everything else looks good, so nothing else is trying to compensate. Because what will happen for your body during compensation, remember you have two systems. You have your lungs, which do respiratory, and then you have your kidneys, which do metabolic. When my respiratory system goes out of whack and my oxygenation and my CO2 are bad, my kidneys or my metabolic function is going to kick in, and they're going to allow their levels to go abnormal so that I can get my normal respiratory. Okay? And the same thing is going to happen for metabolic and respiratory. So let's say your patient has DKA, all right? Diabetic ketoacidosis. So we already know that they're in acidosis. We know that it's a kidney thing, so they're in metabolic acidosis. So if it's metabolic, we know that our metabolic system is broken. And if our metabolic system is broken, then your respiratory system is going to come in and try to help fix it. So if I'm in acidosis and I know that my acid is my CO2, then your respiratory system is going to come in and your body is going to develop Kussmaul's breathing. You're not going to try to do it. It's something your body is naturally going to do. It's going to start Kussmaul's breathing, so you will breathe out lots of CO2 or your acid. So my respiratory system is compensating by blowing out acid because my metabolic system is broken. And it will go vice versa as well.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if it's metabolic, the acidosis, the HCO3 wouldn't be different? Like it wouldn't be high or low? Or it wouldn't be abnormal?
I don't understand what the question is.
Like, because it's metabolic acidosis, the HCO3 wouldn't be different? Like it wouldn't be abnormal at all?
Sometimes it will be abnormal, sometimes it will be close to abnormal, sometimes it can be completely normal, right?
Okay.
If your body is constantly trying to compensate to fix it, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that your HCO3 every single time is going to be abnormal if you're in metabolic. Because your respiratory at this point is trying to kick in and help, right? So what happened here in this situation is that your metabolic broke, your respiratory is coming in to fix it to try to help, all right? So just because your HCO3 is normal doesn't rule out that it's never a metabolic. It just means that your body is working, respiratory is trying to help fix it, everybody's coming in to try to help fix it. You with me? All right. So let's do another one kind of like this so we can practice doing it again, all right? And then we're going to start going into compensatory mechanisms, all right? Once we do these a couple times, it's going to be easy as can. All right, so here we go. What do we know? I know it's itching so bad. Okay, pH. All right, let me write one. I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds to try it on your own, and then we're going to do it together, all right? All right, so just in case you can't see it, we've got a pH of 7.48, a PaCO2 of 30, HCO3 of 26, and a PaO2 of 80. So I want you guys to practice this one. You have 30 seconds to get it, and then we'll do it together. All right, how y'all doing? All right, so I went ahead and left Rome up there, but we know that the first thing I'm going to do is to put Rome up, right? That way I can make it absolutely clear. All right, so I've written Rome. Now my next step is to write out my normals, all right? And I know I'm doing it a bunch with you guys today, but it's to help you remember what your levels are. So your pH is 7.35 to 7.45. PaCO2 is 35 to 45. HCO3 is 22 to 26. PaO2 is 80 to 100. Now, just quick fun fact and something that I just like to glance down ABGs for. If I see a PaO2 that's that borderline, that's already going to kind of clue in my mind this might be a respiratory problem. My oxygen's not looking all that super fantastic, all right? So it's a possibility this could be a more respiratory problem. So I'm going to write out my normals, right? And then we're going to do our arrows, whether we're high or whether we're low. All right, so in this case, 7.35 to 7.45, and I'm at 7.48. That's on the higher end, right? We're going to write our 3 blanks on the bottom too, whenever I'm ready. All right, my 35 to 45 is my PaCO2, 30 is low. Okay, my HCO3 is 26, all right, which is within normal range. My PaO2 is 80, which is borderline, but it's still normal, all right? So next thing I'm going to do after I do my arrows, I'm going to go ahead and look at my pH. My pH is 7.48. We know that that's high. The higher end of that is going to be alkalosis. So I can go ahead and fill this in as alkalosis. All right? The next thing I'm going to do is to look at my arrows. And in this situation, my one arrow is going up and one is going down. That is opposite of each other. Therefore, this is a respiratory condition. Now, what did we say about compensation? We said that the compensation, the pH, if it was fully compensated, would be normal. Our pH is not normal, so it's definitely not fully compensated. I don't really see anything else that's abnormal, so there's no other systems that are trying to compensate, so this is uncompensated. Who got it right?
No one answered.
Nobody answered?
Yeah.
Let's see, if you guys got it right, say me, and brag on yourselves, okay? Anybody? Did y'all nail it? Super easy, yeah? No problem, y'all got this?
I don't know. Where's our people at?
Everybody's sitting there staring at the screen like, I don't know. It may be a lag too. Do we understand this? Did you get it right? Do you understand it?
Tran. Or
Yes.
I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. She said me.
All right, so she got it right. Good job.
Awesome.
All right. So
Rhonda.
Rhonda got it right?
Mm-hmm.
Good job, Rhonda. Are there any questions on this? The basic ones of not compensated, not partially, just basic ABGs using Rome. Does anybody have any questions?
Jenny said mind blown.
Yay, easy enough. Super, super easy. I'm glad you joined us today, Jenny. All right, so we are going to, I'm going to show you next how to do uncompensated, or compensated. We'll do fully compensated. So these are uncompensated. These are just normal ABGs. Sometimes on your exams it won't even say uncompensated, but I just want to